Welcome to the second in a series of programs about guns in our society, brought to you by the Coalition Against Gun Violence, a local grassroots bipartisan nonprofit organization that has been working on gun violence prevention in Santa Barbara for over 20 years. Each month we plan to discuss a different aspect of gun violence using an interview format with guests from our community. The focus of today's program is Laura's Law, an outpatient program for the severely mentally ill. I am Toni Wellen.
And I'm Jacqueline Inda.
Laura Wilcox, a 19-year-old college student who had been valedictorian of her high school class in Nevada County, California, was home for winter break from college. She was filling in as receptionist at the county's Department of Behavioral Health for a week in January of 2001. A patient who was severely mentally ill had tried to call his psychiatrist 6 times over a 2-week period with no response. He burst into the clinic and shot Laura 4 times, along with 2 other individuals. Frequently after a publicized shooting, the issue of mental illness comes up with politicians in the media saying mental illness is the problem and we must do something. Persons with untreated mental illness are more likely to be victims of violence than perpetrators. Only 4.2% of Americans are considered seriously mentally ill. The purpose of Laura's Law is to see that persons with untreated mental illness receive treatment, because persons whose mental illness is treated are no more violent than any in the general population. It is untreated mental illness that is the problem.
In 2002, the California legislature passed Laura's Law, but it's up to every county to implement it. There are many counties that have implemented this, mostly large counties like San Francisco and Los Angeles, San Diego, San Luis Obispo, Ventura, and hopefully ours. There are 45 states in California that have made this a part of their structure. 15 of our counties out of the 58 have adopted Laura's Law.
Laura's Law is an assisted outpatient treatment program. Under that law, a small population of seriously mentally ill persons who are typically too ill or impaired to realize they need treatment are required to participate in a treatment plan, and the mental health department is required to treat them. There are specific criteria for assisted outpatient treatment. The person's mental condition is deteriorating and they are unlikely to survive safely in the community, and they will benefit from treatment. The person has had at least 2 hospitalizations or incarcerations in the past 36 months, or serious and violent acts have been committed, threats and attempts on themselves or others. And the person has been offered an opportunity to participate in treatment and has failed to engage or refused. Jackie?
So, our next person who is online with us is Doreen Farr. And Doreen Farr is our supervisor in District 3. She's online as our special guest today, and we have a few questions for her that she will answer. Our first question is, Doreen, why are you such an advocate for Laura's Law?
Well, I'm always looking for ways that the county can assist the mentally ill. And I have heard from so many families that have loved ones that suffer from mental illness that feel helpless trying to help them and get the assistance that they need. And for many of them, they are, what we call service resistant. And so they will take their medication, they feel better, and then they say, boy, I feel so good, I'm well, and I don't need my medication again. And then they stop taking it, they decompensate, and then, they may get in trouble with the law, or they, become combative, they're out on the street, and then you start this cycle. So the stories are all different in their own ways and unique, and yet they have this common theme about loved ones that are just not able to find the assistance that they need. And so we started investigating Laura's Law as another possible way that we could assist the people that suffer in this way, both the individuals and their family members that are in the community. And I think it's particularly difficult, when you're the parent of an adult child and you want to be able to help them, so desperately, but you can't make them do anything because you don't have, any legal control over them in that way. And so Laura's Law really seemed to be something that the county should investigate and at least implement on a trial basis and a pilot program to see how it would work.
Is it cost effective for having Laura's Law?
We have followed other counties that have already implemented Laura's Law and the performance measurements, so to speak, that they are doing for the program. And of course, we know even from our own research that housing somebody in the county jail is much more expensive than providing the right kind of treatment and housing, even as expensive as it might be in this county, for somebody like that. And of course, we're also talking about a segment of the population of mentally ill that are again service resistant, so that many times they end up in the jail. And so when you add up the costs of people that will cycle in and out of emergency rooms of the jail, who will unfortunately decompensate to the point where they need to go into the psychiatric health facility or be sent out of county if we don't have enough beds here, that's very expensive. And so, the most important thing, of course, is to provide the best kind of treatment possible for whatever each individual situation is. But at the same time, we have found, that these people, can really cost the community a lot of money, way more money than it would take to help them through a Laura's Law program or some other way.
Do we have a budget for it here allocated?
Well, what we did was I was successful in getting the support of two other board members during a budget to set aside about $125,000, and that was to design a pilot program. Probably about a dozen people or less, and so it's just for the design of the program. It's just that first initial step, so that we could then analyze from there all of the other pieces that would go into it. And there really has been a tremendous amount of work done. Our assistant CEO, Terry Mosnisich, has been heavily involved with this issue. It had come to the board. We've already had all kinds of internal meetings with all of the county departments that would be involved, and there would be a lot, sheriff, district attorney, public defender, the courts, of course, alcohol, drug, and mental health services, everybody that would be involved in trying to help this particular person. So there's been an enormous amount of work, done on this issue already.
What's the timeline for implementation here in Santa Barbara?
Well, I think we need to take this next step, and I'm really hoping that the department could just simply hire a consultant. I realize that they're tasked with a lot of things right now, and they're going through systems change. They've hired new people. We want to keep the work of the department on track. So we're not asking them to stop doing something else in order to take this first step. We really think that they could just hire a consultant with the money who would go ahead and design this first phase. It would be nice to know then what that looks like, prior to budget. So in case the board then wanted to take that next step and fund, the actual program design so that we could implement the pilot program, that would be good to know.
Some people critique Laura's Law in this county, and one of the reasons is for housing. How can we implement Laura's Law without any changes in housing?
Obviously, housing is a critically important issue, and it cuts across all demographics and all issue areas. certainly it's particularly difficult for somebody that may have persistent mental illness. But of course, right now we're just talking about a small pilot program. And we have to assume that, the number of people in that program, not all of them may need housing. They may already have housing. They may have housing with family members, particularly if they get stabilized. So we may only be talking about a few people. At the same time, because of my work with the Central Coast Collaborative on Homelessness, C3H, we're looking at the housing issue, for people, and many of them, do have mental illness. Veterans and such, and looking at various innovative ways to find more housing.
So, why spend so much money with so few people that need the help?
Again, I think, we're just starting out with a pilot program, not just because of the cost, but to just kind of assess and see how we might need to tailor it. But of course, if it works well, then it could be expanded and it would serve more people. Again, I think I go back to my previous point that we're talking about a population that costs a lot of money already. In emergency room services, in custody operations, in other ways. When you think about the cost of the whole court system, and but of course, what we mainly want to do is we want to help these people. We want to help their families. So. We're not just looking at the cost from a dollar sign. We're looking at the cost to, trying to help somebody with their life so that they can, return to stability and become a productive, citizen in the community and a family member. And you can't put a price on that. I mean that, So I think that, in looking at the counties that have implemented it. Even though there are some upfront costs that they have found over time, that it has been a cost savings. And of course, how do we measure the benefit to helping somebody improve their life?
Thank you, Doreen Farr, for being a leading advocate on this issue.
I would like to introduce Tom Franklin, retired Santa Barbara County Fire Chief. Tom, you have a personal story. Would you share it with us?
Sure. I have a family member who's been diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder. And I like to say diagnosed with instead of saying they are schizoaffective. You wouldn't say someone is cancer, you would say someone has cancer. And a mental illness is a sickness. It's just a sickness in the brain. This individual also has what's called anosognosia, which means they don't know they're ill. So when we try to get help for that person, there's a lot of resistance. There's no difference in me telling you right now that you have a mental illness. How would you respond to that? You would not respond well. Well, that's how it feels to that person with the schizoaffective disorder. This individual has been in and out of treatment, in and out of jail, numerous times, very expensive proposition, and a classic candidate for Laura's Law.
You mentioned jail and incarceration. Would you explain what the revolving door means?
Sure. Yeah. Revolving door refers to the fact that they've been in and out of jail and in and out of hospital. The end result of that, time and time again going to jail, eventually your sentences become longer because now you have a history, and you could end up spending years in jail. When you get out, you still haven't received any treatment. You're not going to get treatment in jail. Still don't have treatment. You're back on the street. You don't know you're ill. Same thing happens again. You're caught trespassing or stealing or whatever the issue might be. Could be a lot worse than that. Back in jail, no treatment, and it just keeps going. So what Laura's Law does, in effect, a judge gets involved in just called the black robe effect, where the judge actually has this effect on people, and judge will ask the individual to receive treatment, and 9 times out of 10, more like 99 times out of 100, they'll go for the treatment.
Thank you, Tom. I would like to introduce Lynn Gibbs, a member of the National Alliance for the Mentally Ill and Families Act, a local advocacy organization focusing on dual diagnosis, that is, mental illness and substance abuse and criminalization. She is also a mental health advocate working with families. Would you describe your work, Lynn, as an advocate?
Yes, I gradually became an advocate as a result of my daughter's illness and my volunteer work. When my daughter first became ill 15 years ago, I took the NAMI Family to Family Psychoeducation course, and I pretty quickly realized that the other people in the class were as confused about their loved one's condition as I was, and were finding it as difficult as I was to get help for their loved ones. I have volunteered, presently I live in Ojai, and I volunteer on a helpline that the NAMI Ventura group has. And I've volunteered at several psychiatric hospitals. And so over time, over these 15 years, I've learned more about resources, learned by necessity how to advocate for my daughter's treatment, and I then tried to help other people. The County Mental Health Department in Santa Barbara has been undergoing a system change process for a couple of years now, and I serve on several of the teams that are trying to improve the system and speak up for changes that I think we need.
Thank you very much for that work. Why, based on your experience, are you such a strong advocate for Laura's Law? And could you speak to specific cases?
Yeah. There's been a body of research over the past 15 years that shows that Laura's Law is tremendously successful in getting people to participate in treatment on an outpatient basis in the community. In Los Angeles County, their pilot program reduced hospitalizations by 86% and incarcerations by 78%. And so several years into my daughter's illness, I heard from someone about Laura's Law, but we hadn't yet adopted it in the county. I didn't know that it had to be adopted county by county. And so I called my daughter's case manager and I said, this is great, my daughter needs Laura's Law because she doesn't accept that she's ill and needs treatment, and this is exactly what she needs to get the help that she needs. And the case manager said, oh, we don't do that in this county. And I thought, what do you mean you don't do that? And I said, okay, well then make her a pilot, make her a test case. And of course we couldn't do it that way either. Over the years, subsequent 8 years or so, my daughter became part of the cycle of the revolving door, where she would have an emergency hospitalization and then get out of the hospital and do better for a short period of time. So I stopped counting at 15 hospitalizations. And she then became so ill that she was able to have a conservatorship, which turned out to be a wonderful thing for her, because it did the legal aspects of conservatorship meant that she spent 18 months in a wonderful treatment program. And we felt like we had won the lottery. She gradually recovered and did much better and is able to maintain her own treatment. But it's the bar for a conservatorship is tremendously high. And people suffer for a long time, and my daughter did. But that was the point that turned her life around, and she's been doing great for the past 5 years. And what the services that she had under conservatorship are similar to those that someone can get on an outpatient basis under Laura's Law. And had she had that sooner, it would have been better for her and for us. And as I said, she was lucky, so I know how many persons will never, become quite ill enough, but need treatment and are just fall into this place where they refuse to take part in a treatment program and then don't get any better. I have worked. I hear a lot of stories and then try to support families as a result of being NAMI and a Families Act member. And just last week, I was at a hospital, a psychiatric hospital in Ventura County, and NAMI has a table in the lobby, and we talk with families. And so I finished my shift, and I was talking with one of the staff members, and she said, "My parents are just going through, they're beside themselves, because my brother is very ill." And he's had a couple emergency hospitalizations, and he doesn't know that he's ill. And he decided last week to take his tent, and he lives in another county. He decided to take his tent and go up to the mountains where it was snowing and live in his tent up in the mountains. And she said, my parents called 911. And the police came, and they said he wasn't ill enough to be hospitalized, and that it's not a crime to be psychotic. And so they told my parents, the woman's parents, that they had to give my brother his keys back, and that he was free to go to the mountains, and that's what he did. And I know this is something that families experience, and it's so hard to see your loved one so ill and yet have the right to live in a way that endangers their life and means that they're not getting better. Some of the stories of people who've been criminalized are heartbreaking. And in the United States, there are 10 times as many people with serious mental illness in jails and hospitals as there are, jails and prisons as in hospitals. One mother that I'm trying to just give moral support to has a daughter who's been in the Santa Barbara County Jail for most of the past 10 months, waiting for a resolution of her case. She left the hospital too soon and was living on the street, and she went into a home where her friends used to live, and as a result, she was criminalized. And if she had had Laura's Law sooner, she would have been eligible because she'd been hospitalized and incarcerated before. She might not be where she is right now. And were she able to have Laura's Law when she leaves the jail, it could really increase her chances of doing well and getting the treatment she needs when she leaves the jail.
Well, thank you, Lynn. That is really effective for our viewers to hear personal stories and the work that you've done. And thank you, Tom, for sharing your story with us. This program has been about Laura's Law. We hope that what you've learned from our guests and from us has been informative, and we would like to hear from you. What are your thoughts and comments about assisted outpatient treatment in Santa Barbara? Your suggestions for future shows about gun violence prevention are welcome, and please contact us via our website, www.sbcoalition.org. or send an email to sbcagv@gmail.org, or call and leave a message at our phone 805-564-6803. Thank you for watching. Our next program on guns in society will be about Sexual Assault Awareness Month in April, with guests from the Rape Crisis Center and the Santa Barbara City College Feminist Club. We hope you will tune in to SBTV to learn more about guns in our society. Thank you for watching.